Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Ayy, yeah, purpose and practice. Keep your mental sharp, learn all the tactics. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Ayy, yeah, purpose and practice. Podcast game, ayy, he got it mastered. Sign call.
Peace to the Purpose and Practice community. We are back for another fire episode of the Purpose and Practice podcast with your host, Dr. Ross Dill. Yo, to the community, I always like to, start off by giving you a huge shout out for the support, for watching, the viewership, tuning into these amazing stories from young women and young men who are out there doing their thing in this world. This week, we have another story that's going to be told. But before we get into the story, before we get into our guest, I just kind of want to go back and just reframe and make sure we all know why we're here. Remember, the Purpose and Practice community podcast is about telling the untold stories and unheard stories. It's about narratives and sharing counter narratives sometimes. I just believe that, it's our duty to get our stories out there, because if we don't, we could sometimes lose track of our own history. So that is the purpose of this podcast. And that is the reason why we have the Sankofa bird represented in the middle of the screen, meaning and sensing going back and bringing forward. That's what that bird symbolizes in our African culture. So going back and bringing forward. And that's what we do on the show. With that said, you talking about going back and bringing forward. We got a young brother on the show today, someone who I've had opportunity to watch grow, man. Like I've seen him since he was a little baby, and then maturing into a young man. I was actually able to be a principal in high school when he was in the high school over in Long Branch High School, and did crazy, phenomenal things, especially in the music department, the visual and performing arts department there. Then he left, went off to college. It did his thing, man, and now he's just making crazy waves in the entertainment world, man, doing this A&R thing, composing. Like the brother is like doing everything, and I reached out to his mom, shout out to LaToya. I was like, I gotta get Choyce on the show. Like, I gotta get him on the show. And she reconnected us because we had been connected once before. And he agreed to be on. And yo, brother, I'm just happy to see you. You're looking great. I see all those albums in the background. Yo, how you feeling, Choyce?
I'm feeling good. It's been a while since I, last spoke with you. I'm definitely happy to be on the platform. I think it's really important for everyone to, tap in and be a part of something that's bigger than, ourselves. Word.
That bigger than ourselves is very, very important. Sometimes I got to remind myself, and not to take myself too serious. I always say that. And I think that's really, really important in the kind of work that I do as an educator. Sometimes we can get caught up in our own selves, and we lose track of the greater mission and the greater responsibility that we have. So I definitely agree. And this show is definitely bigger than me. And it's for, the youth, it's for the community out there to learn and grow from. So, yo, I was checking out some of the work that you've been doing, man. And I just recently saw, was it Cypher? What was it? It was a new single. Was it the See Me single?
Yeah. So I just got featured on a record that's the first record that I've as an artist have worked on. That's going to be distributed with Empire. So I have that underway. Coming out soon. That was a really, really dope situation because it wasn't anything that I had to necessarily do on my part. It was really just kind of like just handed like, hey, you're on the record. I want you to be featured. And by the way, we're going to do a distribution partnership deal with Empire. And everything was just kind of like, just done without me having to do anything extra. Yeah, so it was dope. I've been trying to make that, that transition as an artist step by step. Just having the experience of working behind the scenes. I've learned to take my time with being an artist and how I want to market myself. So I don't get too crazy about going crazy, chasing after crazy deals or marketing deals. And, I'm really, really just taking the time to even still now perfect my craft as an
Mm.
artist. Um, and so yeah, just with that situation, it was really dope. I have been looking into doing my own distribution with Empire. My manager, he's a partner at Empire, so I was talking to him about maybe releasing my next project with Empire. I know it's there for me to do it, but I kind of want to wait to see. Maybe I might want to go a different avenue with it.
Wow.
Yeah, it
That's
was really
yo.
dope to get the news and then see it, get in the press.
Word, word. Nah, I was like, wow, I was amped. And you've been getting some good news lately, man. Like you really, you're talking about, it sounds like you talking about, yo, I'm taking things in stride. Like I'm not like pressing things. I'm kind of like staying in my zone and things are coming to you.
Yeah,
And I think that that's a really, really wise way to attack things because sometimes we become so goal oriented that like it's like if you don't make certain steps and if you don't reach certain goals within certain times, you start stressing like, oh man, I should have been here, I should have been there. But it sounds like you're taking more of an approach of like, yo, I'm gonna enjoy this process and then the things are going to happen.
yeah. And, like working behind the scenes, the amount of times I've heard younger artists that are like 17, 16, 18 years old do that, I have to always remind them, like, listen, don't be that person that's
Mm.
chasing, the age factor, because a lot of people that have the best longevity in this business started much older. Jay-Z was, I think, 26, 27 when
True,
he got his
true.
first deal. Ty Dolla $ign was another guy in his late 20s. And there's people that may get it at 31, but at least you've gone through trial and error to have
Mm.
a better approach and a well-sounded thought process of making better decisions. And that's why I don't stress it. I think a lot of times people get caught up comparing themselves, like, well, Ariana Grande got signed at 22 years old and I'm 25. Like I'm running out of
Mhm.
time. Like, just enjoy the process and
Word.
just know that your time is going to come
You
when it comes.
your time and be ready. And when it when it comes, be
Yeah.
be prepared and be ready. One of the things, Choice, it, we love to go back and tell stories and tell the stories of growing up. And then hear these great things that you're doing right now. I want to just give some background, knowledge and some context to who you were, how you grew up, what growing up was like, some of the things that influenced you, some of the people who influenced you, in your life. And then, we'll work right back to where we started, to what you're doing now. So if you don't mind, bro, we call it the early years. If you can go back and start telling us about what it was like growing
Okay.
up, where you grew up and such.
All right. So to start, I think everyone knows. If you don't know, I grew up in a gospel family on both sides. Born into
True.
me, born into the arts. My mom was into art. She was into illustration, painting. She did it all. Um, so being born into that, 4 years old, that's when I started banging on pots and pans. Finally got my first drum set. Um, and I like, as a kid, I had so many active things in front of me and surrounding me. Like, my family, was really into basketball and sports also. Like on my dad's
Yes.
side, Schwartzes, they love ball. So I had a lot of that influence where, I was so passionate about sports, but I also love music and playing the drums. I used to be into drawing too as well. Like I remember Gregory School, elementary, I was always drawing anime, Dragon Ball Z characters, and people would ask for a picture. Yo, let me get a picture. Um, I grew up with a very, very hardworking mom. My dad unfortunately was incarcerated for, basically practically my whole life. But I always had the presence of, his family. So I always
True.
felt like, because my cousins to me were like brothers and sisters. So
True.
I felt like I
True.
didn't really lose much out of not having a father.
True.
But there was always, moments of birthdays where you're like, angry because you wish that, your biological father was there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was blessed to have a stepfather, that was there. And, at the beginning of my story, and even reflecting now, I've realized what the biggest adversity was that I had to face, and that was living my truth. Because, I grew up in such a diverse environment where it was, as we would like to say, growing up in the urban community, growing up in the hood, it's either you want to play the tough guy that's, what I'm saying, not scared to defend himself, getting involved in the streets.
Yes.
I had a little bit of that going on where, I didn't want to be looked at as corny. So, let me roll with my cousins in this one and that one, being
Proving
associated with that, but then
yourself.
also
Yes.
feeling like there was always more that I wanted. And, I would find myself being friends with everybody. I would have friends in the hood that I would, rock with, but then I would have friends in the chess club and then other stuff in the marching band, and, all those different things. So I never felt like I could find a middle ground. And, growing up in the church, typically everyone, finds it corny when you're like the church, the church kid or whatever. So I had a lot of that I was dealing with. And then, I remember I'd be in my room, playing the drums to the wee hours, playing on cassette tapes, the Stevie Wonder albums and Usher albums and all these different types of musical influences I got from my mom, Lauryn Hill. And, I'd have my friends that would laugh and be like, oh, why CJ? That's what I went by. He was, why CJ playing drum? Like, that's corny stuff. We want to be a drummer. Like, that's corny. That's gay, whatever, and so forth. So, to me, it I would act like it didn't bother me, but it internally did, because I would feel like I need to do sports more. I need to do other stuff that's cooler.
Yeah.
But
you
I did always love, football. So I got into Pop Warner. I was, I wasn't that good the first year, but I got better. And, I played basketball. I had the opportunity to play in the short conference. I was pretty good, scored like 27 points on that game. I was pretty good in basketball, and, it was crazy because my coaches really was trying to push for me to, play football in high school. And that was that was such a hard decision for me, was, do I play football and basketball and leave music? Because, when I was in fourth grade, I remember like it was yesterday, watching the movie Drumline, it inspired me so much to want to go to school.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you if that movie inspired you.
That was like the first thing. Like, my mom would always say, oh, see that you going to be the next Pharrell. She used to always say Pharrell and Kanye. And, at the time that I was playing drums, I always wanted to be that drummer that played the drums for Jay-Z, DMX. Like, that was my dream, was to be a celebrity drummer. And
let me stop you right there. Because I want to go back. You mentioned mom and you mentioned dad. And mom and dad, your dad was someone, growing up, I was a little younger, but I looked up to him. We looked up to your dad, man. One of the smartest, brilliant brother, brilliant and then stylish, like crazy style, right? And then, your mom, crazy artist, man, like just brilliant artist. And I'm looking at you and hearing you and your story, and I'm like, you know what? It makes so much sense that you're brilliant. You know what I mean? Musically, it makes so much sense because it was there. And then you just talked about, I kind of play basketball, That's another thing. You know, your uncles. I played ball with your uncle. You know, with John, and you know, like it's like, you know, like you know, your family, and I'm fortunate enough to know both your grandmas. You know, I know, you know, your grandmother from on your mother's side and on your dad's side, you know. So I have a real good sense of the kind of family that you came up with, you know, when you start talking about church. Yes, very, very strong. You know, so I wanted to shout that out because again, you know, there's so much brilliance in there. And then to see you as a reflection of that, you know, and you said something, Choyce, that I just want to go back and repeat. As you said that your mother said you're going to be the next Pharrell or the next Kanye. That's so important though. Like to hear that as a kid coming up, like you're going to be, you know, like did you start taking that serious?
I didn't understand it. I really just loved playing the drums, and I didn't quite fully understand when she would say that, how much I was really manifesting it at that same time, and then also repressing it because it was a lot, you know. And and that was another thing was, you know, I don't want to put my dad's business out there, but you know, he was convicted of so many felonies with drugs and being a drug dealer, and it was also that peer pressure of, do I live up to what my dad was? Because that is a mentality that many of us have in our community is, you know, our dad was in the streets, our big brother was in the streets, our uncle was in the streets, so I got to be like that. And that was, thank you for, you know, bringing that up, because that just made me realize, like, to mention that was, there was a lot of pressure with trying to be what my dad was. And then at the times that I would be around that type of group, repressing, wanting to draw, wanting to do music, wanting to be in drama. I loved it.
Wow.
It took forever for my mom to find out that I could actually sing. She didn't find out I could actually sing until high school. She didn't find out that I actually could dance until near the end of high school. She was like, wow, I should have put you in dance class. But my whole pressure was, I didn't want people to laugh at me for those things, you know. And it hurt in a way, because I wish I could have done more when I was younger.
True.
But I'm so thankful for having the experience of so many different cultural values and so many complexities to it. And you know, like, I'm definitely thankful for, you know, having my dad's drive. My mom used to always say, you have your father's drive. And so, and at first it was embarrassing for me, because I had a lot of friends, you know, who also lived in the typical household of mother and fathers at home. All the kids are by the same parents. You know, I always wanted that kind of life as a kid. And the biggest problem that I had, and I learned this when I was older, was I was always busy comparing myself to other people. That was the biggest problem that I ever had as a kid, was I would always compare what this one has, what that one has, and I would feel ashamed about it, you know. And then also, you know, growing up in my neighborhood, or, you know, just even in the community I grew up in, was, you know, having my last name, and everyone associating that as, oh, you the white boy. They would, you know, come with crazy jokes, you know, saying, oh, Choyce Schwartz, like, why you talk white? Why you talk black? You know, I can't help that I had a, you know, an educated mom. And, you know, a lot of people out here admire my father, but they didn't realize my dad was very intelligent, well-spoken.
Yes, that's what
they never saw that side. They always assumed that my dad was just another street dude, you know, doing what he do. But, you know,
that's why, Choyce, that's why I wanted to take some time to talk through that. Because it's so complex. And I think that's kind of what you're hitting on, the complexity of it. And when I mentioned Dad, the first thing I said was how intelligent, like he was brilliant. Like he is brilliant. He's a, you know, and that's what I remember being a young head growing up. is he was funny, he was intelligent, and I'm like, he was someone you just wanted to be around,
Yeah,
just had that kind of magnetic energy, bro.
yeah.
So
I definitely feel like I have his charisma,
yes, that's
meaning
the
that we
word.
just adapt in any room. And that was something that was actually pointed out to me. I was speaking with a PR agent, Steve Cuoco,
Hmm.
very, really, really great, reputable guy. And he's from New Jersey as well. Um, and we were having our conversations in regards to you know music and working together in the future. And he then stopped, and he got into reading me. He's a public relations
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
so he's great at reading people. And he said to me, he said, I just have one question to ask you. It was so random. He said, I have one question to ask you. He said, I can tell that you had to grow up and you started maturing around the age of 7 and 8. But I want to ask you, you were always, he said, you were always comfortable in any circle of people that you were
Hmm.
amongst. He
Hmm.
said, you could adapt in any group and you were friends with everyone. My question to you is, why did you always feel alone?
Wow.
And it blew my mind because I've never repeated that to anybody. But that was always
Wow.
an internal feeling that I always felt,
Yes.
was I always felt alone. I could, hang out with this one, that one. I had a lot of friends,
Wow.
in so many different aspects, but I always felt alone. And he said, the reason why you felt so alone growing up, even though you had all of these different things and you could, get along with anyone, the reason is because you stand out no matter where you are, no
Mm,
matter who you're amongst, you stand
mm,
out. And the reason why you stand out is because your purpose in life is truth. And he said
mm.
that you live your truth to help others live theirs. He said, and that's why
Wow.
you'll always stand out, is to help others have the confidence to live their truth. And I always find myself being very
That's powerful.
passionate about other people and, other people's talents and capabilities, and, going out my way to push them, to
Yes.
stand out and do this and do that. So to me, that was a huge awakening when I had that conversation with him, because it really reminded me of everything and why I was dealing with so much internally, but I was
That's
always repressive
crazy.
of all those things
Yes. That
throughout school.
yo, that's a great story, bro. And I know that had to like give you goosebumps. Be like, yo, how you read me like that? Like,
Yeah, no,
like
it
that's
was weird because, and I
that is
remember like
crazy.
Gregory School. I remember Gregory School at the time that Mr. Salvatore was the principal.
Okay.
I was always into drawing, and they recognized that, and then they had found out that I was into music and playing the drums, so they had a little accommodation for me where my tutor, Mr.
Wow.
Truss, at the time, who was in the district, he
Yes,
would
yes,
just
yes.
pull me aside for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just to do my own little private drumming lesson. And
Wow.
Gregory, because Gregory didn't offer any music classes, it was, a whole
Wow.
basis of general ed. And it got to a point where second grade came, and the teachers and Mr. Salvatore said to my mom, they went to have a meeting with her, and they were saying, your son is really talented. We need to put him in Anastasia. So I didn't have any friends at Anastasia. All my friends were going to West End. So,
Wow.
and I'm saying to myself, I don't know if I want to go to a school where it's more so want to be based in, art and
Hmm.
talent. I kind of
Hmm.
want to still have my, because I don't want to
Yeah,
be an
have you?
actor. I
Yeah.
don't want to, you know. But then when I
Wow.
got there, there was some kids that I, recognized from Garfield Court, and
Uh-huh.
it was pretty cool.
Wow. Yo, so you were like what, first grade, second grade, and
Yeah,
they noticed this in Mr. Trust. Shout out to Mr. Trust and Mr. Salvatore. I remember Mr. Trust and obviously Mr. Salvatore. And they created an accommodation for you so
yeah,
that you can basically have arts in a school, in an elementary school that didn't have arts.
yeah. I remember like it was yesterday. Yeah,
Wow, that's dope, man.
yeah,
That's dope. That's a dope story, man, of educators, noticing something. In we have to have our eyes for that, you know, for that potential and for that passion. And it must have been crazy for them to see that. And then when you look back to now and you're like, wow, they saw that in me, you know, as a 6-year-old, as a 7-year-old, you know?
And I do love the structure that Long Branch District has. It's a structure like no other that I've witnessed. You know, I always like to, when I talk to friends that are from other places, I always like to compare Long Branch to like Hogwarts of Harry Potter, where
Yeah,
you know, it's like the Leadership Academy is for people that want to be in politics. BPA is for all the entertainers. You know, Science and Technology Academy is for all the people that's in computers and science. So I always thought that was such a dope idea, and I noticed it in, you know, middle school, how it was based on our abilities. You know? It was like some type of evaluation, and I think that it's cool that we have that foundation, but I don't think we do enough with it. I think it's we're too mediocre, and I'm going to be flat out honest. I think that it's too mediocre, and it hasn't been taken to
the next
where
level.
It should go, you know, I think that they should really dig more into it and really, you know, hone the skills of those students. Like, because I always felt like, I know we were going to get into it, but you know, the music department, I just didn't feel like it offered enough, and I know that because when I got to UR, I went to one of the top music schools in the country. You know, and they told me, you know, I got in based on, well, after they realized that I didn't know as much, or at least didn't learn as much, they realized that I got in because of pure talent. I didn't, you know, I didn't have a background in the best disciplinary schools or lessons to prepare me for that type of advanced curriculum, you know, and music theory. And because I went to UArts and it's so crazy, Mr. Wright, it's so crazy. So when I got into UArts, when I got accepted, I auditioned for 2 different programs.
Okay.
Swear to God, I had told my mom that I wanted to go to school to be a music producer, but I didn't think that existed, really. I didn't think that was really a major, to be a producer as a major. So I only auditioned for the composition program to be a composer.
Okay.
So I found out last minute during the auditions that was a program that existed for people that are just trying to be in music business. I mean, you know, as a producer. And it's called the Music Business Entrepreneurship and Technology major. So I last minute auditioned for that as well as my composition audition. And swear to God, my mom could tell you, like it was like yesterday. And I got accepted in both. And I was one of the only double majors, because that school didn't offer double major. That school only offered being a major and having a minor. I happened to be a freshman that had 2 majors. I was a double major. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. Some of the classes I had to automatically start in an upperclassman class. And I did not do well in a lot of the musicianship classes or the music theory classes. I did better in the music business classes in other forms, but you know, I wish that Long Branch could have given me a lot more, but I don't want to use them as an excuse. But it's just needless to say, you know, because I've heard other students say it as well that I went to school with, that, you know, Long Branch didn't quite prepare us for, you know, what it was that we were pursuing.
Well, let's talk a little bit, because maybe someone's listening who can help with that. And again, like I told you, I work in the school district, so I'm always trying to find ways to make education a more valuable experience at every school level, but particularly the high school level. So if you don't mind, like, if you could just say, all right, there were a few things that, you know, if we had more of, I would have been able to take that into the next, you know, part of my life. So in your specific situation in terms of music, right? Let's talk a little bit about what could have been built into the curriculum or coursework that would have been more beneficial for you, someone's going into music at the college level.
Yeah, so I think that just having the curriculum where you have kids that's coming in and then you got sheet music there and you're like teaching them the sheet music to play to get ready for a concert, symphonic band or jazz band, it's not enough. I think what you need to do is you need to have classes either after school or, you know, even offered within the curriculum during school,
Hmm.
where there's a music theory class,
Okay.
there's a musicianship class,
Okay.
you know, classes where they can get that type of information. You know, I didn't get into really knowing much about the circle of fifths until college. That's
Wow.
something, circle of
Okay.
fifths is something that I should have learned
Yes. Yeah.
in elementary, middle school.
Yes. Okay.
There's not one time I remember any of my teachers ever bringing up the circle of fifths.
Okay.
You
So
know, and
it
other
is.
things.
So it's really. It sounds like making it because sometimes we have classes. Like for example, you talked about we had to prepare for a concert.
Yeah,
So sometimes when we create courses, we create them with an objective in mind, right?
yeah,
So we create a course. One objective may be we want to have a spring concert, we want to have a winter concert, right?
yeah.
So therefore, the coursework is going to be
Be
based on
based on
getting
that.
that. So we have to widen our lens to saying, hey, we want to create forget about a concert or a halftime show or what have you. We want to create folks who are going to be able to go into the world and compose and create this music and have the theoretical background that goes along with it. So
Yeah,
we need to think bigger in a
yeah,
sense.
and we have, and that's what and that's something I couldn't wrap my head around. Is we have a visual performing arts academy. That means we should be getting all of our resources, you know, that other schools can't even offer. I think I really wanted to implement this, you know, well, at least make this proposal to Mr. Savage at the time that he was the superintendent and say you should be offering music business. Like that's an
Mhm.
option that a
Yes.
lot of people
Yeah.
don't know because a lot of people don't want to be in a rock band or,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
an artist. A
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
people
Yes.
at that age should be learning about music publishing. I didn't know what music publishing was until I got into college. I didn't
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
songwriting was until I got into college. At least different positions of what songwriting is and what it means.
Hmm.
Entertainment law, you know, being a lawyer in music. Like I think that those are things that if we can offer that in high school now, almost like as if it's like trade school classes. Imagine what that will do and how that will
Yes.
prepare kids moving forward in their futures. Because a lot of kids now are becoming independent entrepreneurs really young. You know, I'm in the
Yes.
studio where there's kids engineering at 16 years old, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and they're
Yes.
pursuing that as a career. But imagine if the schools were, you know, helping with that process and that kid doesn't have to feel like they have to do it on their own. You know, what saved me because, you know, Mr. Clark, it's all love, but he had the attitude that he wasn't going to do more than he felt he should have done.
Mm.
And I think he had a very dismissive attitude. You know, I tried to refrain from making things about race, but there was just topics that I can recall that to
Mm.
me felt very insensitive. And I think that he was dismissive of not just myself but other African American students there. You know, he kind of just wrote us off as, well, this is basically it for them. They're not going to do anything more. Like,
Mm.
you know, you're going to go to high school and that's it. You're not going to.
Mm.
He
It
wasn't.
wasn't
He wasn't
see
the reason why. He wasn't the reason why I got into the University of Arts. He wasn't the reason. And I had to get the extra tutoring and lessons from my uncle Monty, my mom's uncle. That's who really helped me. And you know, to sit there and say to my mom, "Oh, Choyce doesn't know how to read music," that was a lie. I didn't know how to read
Mm.
music. I did know how to read music. I wasn't that
Wow.
great at it because
Yeah.
I wasn't getting enough,
It was
at school
going back to what
with
you were saying
reading
about
music.
yes.
And it took, and that's one person I will thank is Miss Powers, who was
Mhm.
the chorus teacher at Long Beach High School. Um, I had Miss Powers last the what was it, spring quarter? Yeah, it was, no, it was either spring or winter. But I started taking lessons from Miss Powers after class,
Mm.
after chorus, to help me prepare for my auditions for college.
Okay.
You know, and Miss
Okay.
Powers sat with me
Wow.
a lot.
Wow.
Mr. Clark kind of wrote off the idea that I wasn't going to be anything. I wasn't going to do nothing with music, and that was always his attitude. And he wonders why everyone always quits their senior year when it comes to the drummer section. He always likes to put it, oh, there's a curse in Long Branch's marching band's drum section because the drummers always want to quit senior year. I've been doing music, for so many years. I wanted something new, and I felt like at that time, I wanted to do chorus and I wanted to do other things. I wanted to be in drama, so I took that opportunity because I felt like I wasted so much time when I should have been doing plays a lot sooner and a lot younger. I was always mad that I didn't get a chance to do enough Westwood plays.
Yes.
But, that was his attitude. His attitude was Choyce just has gospel chops. He almost, it's funny. He presented himself like a record exec. Now that I work with music execs at labels, that's how he was. It was like he would scout you when you were in elementary. I remember this like it was yesterday.
Okay.
When I was in elementary, Mr. Clark discovered who I was. Now I thought I was special because I thought I was the only one that he was looking at the time in elementary. Until I heard everyone else's story that was older than me in band.
Yeah.
But when I was in like 4th, 5th grade, the guy came up to me and complimented me so much on how I was such a dope drummer. And, oh my God, the gospel chops, like you must play in church because I'm black, obviously, right? Yeah, you must play in church, you got chops. And his attitude was not to teach me how to read music. No, his approach to teaching me how to read music was, I'm going to say it out loud to you. And I'm just going to like have you learn it hands-on without actually teaching you the theory of what you're reading.
Wow.
So I had a lot of illiteracy musically with him.
Wow.
Because his approach was, I'm going to sound it out to you. So you're going to do, this means dot, digga, dot, dot, digga, dot, dot, dot. Not actually what the note is, what it means. Just, I'm going to actually just sound it out for you. Or he wouldn't even do that. He'd do some of that, but then also put it in a way where he would change what's written to make it easy because he doesn't want to take the time to actually challenge us to read it. And he did that with a lot of the cadence music and a lot of the sheet music for band. He did that a lot. And anyone that is listening that was in marching band, that was a drummer, could tell you. I can't speak on the other sections, but Will, Marcus Bowles, a lot of them could tell you he did that a lot. He did not want to challenge us into actually reading the music, know, and that's what I was, dealing with, was that attitude of everything's all good when he's a drummer from the church, but then you want to take that to say he's not worthy enough of teaching, Choyce doesn't, your son doesn't read music. Your son doesn't know how to read music. So it was like you would compliment me for being for having a church drummer background, but then you would take that and put it as a way to say that I'm incapable of being more than a gospel drummer.
Yeah. And not raising the expectation.
Not raising the expectation
terms of,
at all.
Yes. And giving
always,
you
Yeah, and it was and I noticed that he would always seek out, drummers from church. And I thought that was just, I didn't think that much of it. I was younger, and I kind of wish that my attitude had been better, because my attitude was, all right, well, I'm just going to be a goofball. And, me and Isaiah, the other band drummers in band, are just going to not pay attention and just say, oh, well, forget it. He don't want to teach us anyway. Have a careless attitude instead of, entertaining it. I should have, as a a young adult at the time, I should have said, you know what? I want more for myself. I'm going to drive this man insane until he actually challenges me. But that wasn't my approach. And that's something that I can honestly say that I should have done for myself. But I remember, Dr. Ross, I remember the day that I got accepted. There was a huge assembly for students that had got their scholarship offers
Mm-hmm.
and got into the schools that they wanted. This is at the time where they offered some program, some like I forget what the exact program was at the time that Long Range had at the high school, but I was a part of it, and there was like an assembly, and they announced that I had got accepted for two programs at the University of the Arts. It was a top 10 at the
Yeah.
time. It was, I believe, top 8 or top 10 in the country,
Yes.
best art
Yes.
school. He didn't congratulate me. He
Wow.
didn't say not one word. And the face he had when they said my name for that, it was like he didn't care. But I was the same kid that you were chasing around trying to persuade to join the marching band. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to join
Mm-hmm.
marching band when I was in 5th grade. He wanted me to be
Wow.
in a marching band. Now I didn't know that he
Wow.
did that to Will, uh, and a couple other students at the time too when they were, at that age. But again, my attitude was I wanted to play football. I wanted to play, pop
Yeah.
ball with
You want?
friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Until I finally listened to my mom and said, CJ, no, you should do it. You
Yeah.
need this because aren't you trying to be, in the music industry? You want to be a producer, right? So, you know, um, that's what I did, and
Yeah.
I even quit basketball. I quit when I was a freshman at university. He felt like it was a waste of time, so he convinced me to quit playing basketball to stay in band.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
did that. I listened to what he was saying and I quit playing basketball, even though that was always a huge thing for me, was putting
Yeah.
on that varsity jersey,
Yeah.
being in the
Yeah.
papers, that was something that
Yeah.
I
You
always
valued it. Was yeah.
valued.
It was. Yo. If it's so much that you said, bro, and in so many experiences of young people in school, um, and I'm so happy that you were honest, with your experience because this is a show where I want young people to learn from,
Yeah.
and you share some of your experiences, and some of us have similar experiences. I had similar experiences. I can share similar experiences. Um, and you talked about though different approaches to handling it.
Yeah.
Um, you talked about your mom setting you up with a tutor, your Uncle Monty, I think you said,
Yeah.
you know, and you talked about, yo, I'm gonna push forward. And not only did you get pushed forward, but then you get accepted into a top 10 school of the arts in the country, man, and one of the best in the world, like so what do you attribute that to? Like how even being a young man at the time, um, what do you attribute that to, man? Is that family? Is that like self belief? Did something click in you, like to make that happen? Because a lot of times, Choice, the story that you told ends up with okay, you graduate high school, but then you're kind of unsure of yourself. Like there's no confidence. You don't you don't even follow your passion, you
Um,
know?
so the day of auditioning in my interview, I was confident. I felt good. I felt like I was ready. Man, I got in that room and where the audition rooms were, and I'm amongst some of the most insane talented people I've ever met in my life.
Mhm.
I was so
Mhm.
discouraged when I seen how great the others were. I was so taken back by it. I could not believe. And I was like, so like where do I go? They were like, well, you
Yeah.
come sit right there, you just set up right there and you go. And I'm hearing these other people playing. I'm like, yo, how the heck? So I'm sitting there like, I'm here for a reason. Like, I really, 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 I manifested. I listened to Smokey Norfolk that whole car ride. I really did. I listened to Run Till I Finish. I remember like it was yesterday. I listened to Smokey Norfolk, Run Till I Finish, and I reminded myself why I'm here.
Wow.
Um, and what's so funny is the reason why I had more confidence was because I remember in 8th grade there was the upward bound
Upward Bound.
program
Yes,
at
yes,
Rutgers
yes,
University that was offered
yes,
for middle schoolers.
yes.
I had good grades in middle school, 8th grade. I had great grades. I was like
Mm-hmm.
an A student. Um, I don't remember everyone that was a part of the Upward Bound program, or at least the ones that auditioned for Mommy. I believe it was Nikita Cooper, Jalal Muhammad, Ashley
Wow.
Logan, Naira Hall, a few other people. But I was one of the students that got accepted for an interview. They
Okay.
they I had to send we had to send our transcript and write a paper. My mom obviously helped me with the paper,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I got accepted, and then we had to have an interview, and that would deem whether we got in to join the program. It
Okay.
was literally like a whole college experience, and
Before
I
college,
didn't have the
yes.
confidence at the time. I was too shy, I didn't know how to speak, and I remember after that interview, just like being like deer in headlights, didn't know how to answer questions, how to,
Wow.
express, didn't know how to pitch myself, and I tore myself up for that for a long time because that was a huge
Yeah.
opportunity that I
Opportunity.
missed.
Yes.
So I had an attitude of walking in this college campus and saying, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
get it. And when I
That.
got into
Yeah.
my interview for the MBET program, I made sure that I got locked in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
but I was scared.
That's a great story, man. That's a really, really great story. And thank you for sharing. That you you get the acceptance. You get a double major. You get accepted in two areas. Um, was it composing, and then it was the production side and the business side of it
Yeah, it
that you were
was.
accepted. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you go off to school. What is and you talked a little bit about that. You struggled a little bit. On one side of it, was it the composition side that you struggled a little bit?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was
So
hard.
yeah. So what was it like? How did you make it through that experience in terms of the college experience? In making sure that you were keeping up and making sure that you were actually not only keeping up, but you had to do some catching up because you weren't exposed to some things earlier.
Well, that's the thing, and to even go back, Mr. Clark knew that. He knew that I wasn't ready for that school, and that's the sad part.
Mm.
He knew that I was, and I was. You know what he said to me? I'm gonna get to your question, but you know what he said to me the day that I seen him at the high school football game one day. I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was actually the year that I left, and
Mm-hmm.
I was at Brookdale.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't ask me about UR. Didn't ask me about none of my experience after high school with music. The first thing he said to me was, "How's Brookdale? You're at
Wow.
Brookdale, right?" Now I don't know who told him that I was at Brookdale, but why of all things would you have to point that out? As
Yeah.
if that was such a
Yeah.
bad thing. Is this you couldn't wait to say to yourself, Choyce is not going to last in that school. That
Mm.
was the attitude.
Mm.
And I remember that energy in school in the process of me, preparing to go to that school.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
But to go back
Wow.
to your question, I I couldn't I couldn't keep up. And I had professors that said to me, Choyce, you're very talented, but you know, at this point it's going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that what really hurt was having poor time management. My first time living on my own in the city. I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to make friends, trying to be,
Yeah.
a part of the party,
Yeah.
school life,
Yeah.
but also, so the way that this school operates is, as a freshman, you automatically have to do 17 credits.
Okay.
To me, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I was taking like 6 classes in one
Yeah.
semester, double majoring, which was already hard enough. Even the my faculty couldn't understand why I was a double major. Some of them, they would be like, how are you a double major at the school? Like, you shouldn't be a double major. Like,
It shouldn't happen. Like, yeah.
So they had that. My schedule was always weirder than other freshmen. Like, I remember my freshman friends, I would always get like, just annoyed at the fact that I had a harder schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And being on scholarship because they paid half my tuition too.
Okay.
I had to maintain a certain GPA.
Yeah.
I wasn't maintaining it. I had academic probation, and and I didn't know what coming from a basic public school grading system where if you get an F, or two Fs, you still want to move on to the next grade.
But not in college.
So
it kills you.
it doesn't work like
Yeah.
that. So my first semester, I got all A's and one F.
And that kills your average. It kills your GPA. Yeah.
Yeah. Second semester, I get an F and all A's and B's. And then I had something. I think I had B's and C's. And I think another F. But I remember being on academic probation, and they told me I could not afford to fail another class.
Mm-hmm.
And the next semester, I got all C's. Didn't fail any classes. Got all C's. But I still didn't realize that I was fighting that probation. And so they had to, remove me from the school. I had to appeal. Didn't make the appeal because that was my second time appealing. And I remember Mr. Mark Ditchiani, Dr. Ditchiani, great guy. He was in the room with me. We were in his office. He was the dean of music. He was in the office with me and my great grandmother. And he just said to me, he was just saying, like, listen, this does not mean that you're not going to be successful in the industry. He said, do you know how many students graduate from the school? He said, in any art school that you go to, no one stays at that school and graduates. Now, my mom at the time didn't understand that. My mom's thinking, no, I just you need a lot of money. Like, the school school is like $60,000 a semester. Like, no.
Yeah.
But he was literally saying to me that I'm very capable of it. He said, I knew what you're capable of because when he was my professor also.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the professor in all my business classes that were senior, junior classes.
Okay.
I got B pluses and A's in those classes. So he said, I know your potential. I just think that you might have to take a step back. He said, go to a community college. He said, go back to, you're from New Jersey. He said, go to that school, Brookdale, do an internship, get familiar. He was like, just saying, like, just get more familiar with it. And I promise you, you're going to be ready. My other professor, MJ, said that, I was very talented, and that I just needed to apply myself more, and which I could not, not agree any less with. Like, he was right. It was a matter of applying myself and a matter of not feeling so discouraged, because I would sit in classes, man, and I would just hear, students have the answers to things I've never even heard of and terminologies I've never heard. They're talking about they've learned this in junior high, and I'm just like confused, and I'm so far behind in some ways. But you know what? After that semester, when I didn't get in, I went with, remember Gerard Carpenter?
What was it? Joy?
Gerard Carpenter. He was
on the
TV.
Yes.
So him and I were good friends. So what happened was, and I love always telling this story, is Gerard actually had a interview to intern at the Grammy-winning record producer J. Chris Griffin's company in New York.
Wow.
And so he asked me, he's like, he hits me up one night. He's like, yo, Choyce, like, I'm back from, I think at the time he was at Harvard University in Connecticut.
He was
at New Haven. He was at New Haven.
Okay.
Come back home. and at the time he had transferred to SAE in New York, and he says, "I want you to go with me to this." And God bless him for this. So he says to me, "I want you to come." And I'm like, "Well, heck yeah, I'll come. I'll come support. Like this is huge. Like what? You got an internship?" I didn't know much about internship. I mean, I knew that UArts offered them, but I didn't know much of what that entailed. So I go with them to New York. We take the train, and we finally get to this huge. It's like a 20-story building. It's huge. It's like this is my first record company experience. Like,
Yeah.
we get to the top 22nd floor, where in one of the offices where they do all the Nickelodeon films, and 50 Cent records there. They master everyone that's in the industry gets their records mastered at this company. Many people. He's developed Madonna. He's developed.
Wow.
He's worked with Jay-Z, Kanye, Trey Songz. He's worked with everyone. And this guy's like 6'7". So I'm looking at this guy like, whoa, this dude's huge. And he's very cool, very calm, collected, older guy. He invites us in his office. I don't speak. I'm letting Gerard just do his thing.
Do all it, yeah.
And Jay Chris, he mentions golf out of nowhere. Now at the time, I was a golf caddy at Hollywood Golf Club.
Oh, okay.
I was golfing there for a long time. Yeah, so that's when I interjected and I said, "Oh, I'm a golf caddy." So we have something because Gerard.
Yep, you got a connection. Yes.
A shared common thing. And just by me interjecting into that conversation, he says to me, "So what do you do? Where you at?" I said, "Well, I was a student at the University of the Arts." He said, "Oh, great school. Like, like you went to UArts. What'd you go for?" So I say the major that I was majoring in.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, do you have anything on you? Let me hear something." So thank God I was prepared because I had music that I had been working on at school on my phone.
Wow.
And I play him the songs, I play him the beats, the music that I got, and he was just vibing. He was like, "Hey, listen, do you want to work here? Because you both can get an internship here. I love both of you guys. I love what you guys have to offer." Yeah, I
wow.
And you say, just don't take pictures when you
yeah.
People want to come here in their own.
Yep. Yep.
He's just telling me how Kanye West is, how he likes to be in the studio and stuff. So he's just telling me you're not going to be cleaning microphones. You're going to be actually doing hands-on stuff. So we get this opportunity, and I come home so excited to tell my mom I got accepted. Well, I got this internship offer, and my mom's like, "You're not going to the city. How are you going to the city?" Like, so that was her whole energy. And then my dad, speaking to my dad on the phone, getting a chance, he's like telling my mom, like, "No, you should really let him." I understood what my mom was at. I think my mom was at a place where she was really upset that I didn't finish at that
with the school. Yeah.
But for me, it was a story that I've heard millions of times of people dropping out and becoming the biggest thing.
True.
And I remember after that just going behind her back and finding a way to get to the city every time.
Wow.
Gerard didn't go with the internship, but I did, and I made sure I kept a close connection with him, with Jay Chris, and I started networking with a lot of people there and even out.
Wow.
And at UArts, I was just I found myself. Brookdale for me was a much better experience in some aspects. I would say in the classroom aspect, what UArts had was all the resources you could ever ask for. Like, but the thing was, it was so overwhelming because I'm in a school, right, where these aren't regular students. These are students that are already dancing for Beyonce. They're playing the drums for Jill Scott. And I'm saying to myself, wait, you're a student and you're doing this and you're going on tours. How are you keeping up with school? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? And so I was so focus on, because every student has to, from freshman year, you have to work on your portfolio.
Yep.
And I didn't know what the heck that meant. I'm
like how? Yeah. Where do I start? Like what?
okay,
Yeah.
so I'm a part of the university's record label, because the school has its own record label that's part of the portfolio, and then there's a radio station, a part of the school that I was a part of because I was an MBET student, and we also have to do ensembles. We got to do live sound. So I'm like trying to do all these projects, and then I got to do projects that I got to find outside of school to be a part of my portfolio. So I'm just trying to understand, how do I do all this? How are you guys keeping up with this? And I didn't know that these kids was already conditioned to doing shit like this. So I'm just like lost. But at Brookdale, it was all, these are your classes. We have enough tutors for you to get through this and that. And I would definitely say that Brookdale's faculty is much better when it comes to accommodating students. And I think that at four-year universities, there's this tendency of, I expect you to already know this,
to come in.
I'm not going to dive too much into teaching you whatever it is that you're not prepared for. And Brookdale for me was definitely the school that I should have gone to first to prepare myself, but that was my attitude, because my attitude was like everyone else's. I'm going to brag about going to what I hated was I had relatives and some people that were in the same group as Mr. Clark, telling my mom that I'm not ready. Oh, he's going to blow. He's not going to do well. And I'm not going to lie. I was a pretty mediocre student in high school. My attitude was, I'm going to be a producer. I'm going to be in the music industry, so I don't need math. I don't need this stuff. I don't need that. That was the attitude I had. And then I finally picked it up, got it together junior, senior year. But they felt like I wasn't going to do my best, and I just think that wasn't the appropriate energy that they should have had. I think that people don't understand how much energy plays a role in things and how you
so much
things.
So much.
I just wish that people wasn't hindering my mom saying that I can't do it and that I'm not going to do it.
Wow.
And I saw how it affected her, and it got her to a point where who used to be my rooter and was rooting, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. She now gets to the point where she has doubts. Like, you failed at school. You promised me you were going to do this and do that. You didn't do it. And she had every right to feel that way. And I think that it became an issue where we didn't get along for a while because of this. The relationship kind of just went into a discourse because of her feeling like, okay, it's time to get realistic now. Stop chasing the dream. Get practical. You're working at this job. And I'm working at the golf club. Making connections. That was my whole idea. I wanted to work at the golf club,
networking,
the resources, and and I'm working 2 jobs at the mall at the same. I'm working at Outdoor, I'm working at Express, and going to Brookdale at the same time, as well as trying to make time for the studio. So I had to take a step back and say, what do I have to lose, and what am I willing to sacrifice?
Yes.
So every time I would get a good opportunity to get a practical job, I wouldn't take it serious because I knew what I was chasing after. And I remember Jay-Z used to always say, if you start worrying about the plan B, you're going to lose the plan A.
Plan A. Yes.
So I made that sacrifice, and I will always bet on that sacrifice, because we have to take risk. And I know that, our parents come from a different time where, it's work at a place and
for 25 years, retire, get the watch, and that
it was it was just hard to get my mom to just see it the way that I'm seeing it. And thankfully I've gotten to a place where I am comfortable now. I did get to do the things that I wanted to do, and there's so much more that I want to do.
Yes.
But I would have never gotten to this point or made the connections that I've made, the relationships that I've built, if I was still so driven to just stay in this practical space and not, open myself up,
Yes.
you know.
And take and risk and take
One
that
time,
risk.
yeah, I remember I assumed that my mom wasn't gonna let me go travel state to state, for music, and I had lied and said I'm going to see my grandma.
Mhm.
I said I was going to North Carolina to, spend time with my grandma. But no, I took a whole trip, state to state. I remember like it was yesterday. I took a whole trip
Wow.
with my friends, and we worked on music. We got in different studios, and then it got
Wow.
to the point where I was getting paid. They was paying for my flight. People was
Wow.
paying
The
for me to
flight
come
for
out to
music.
LA to work, and and at the time, I'm not getting paid much, but that's the thing about music though, and that's the thing about entertainment is it's not about the money, the fast money or the money that's
Hmm.
received up front. It's what you build that's going to create longevity, and that's the
Yes.
attitude you got to have. I would always hear people say, you know, um, don't have your attitude be money, money, money. Have your attitude be, hey, listen, I'll do it. I'll work for free. You don't gotta hand me nothing. You don't gotta give me nothing.
Hmm.
Like it goes back to the old story of how P Diddy took a
Hmm.
step back and
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
"I'm
Yeah.
willing to
Yep.
intern for
Intern. Yep.
you for free. Don't pay me at
Yes.
all. I just want to get in the room. I just want to learn."
Yep.
And so that was just the attitude that I had. It was never about chasing big money, and at that point, I realized how relationships work. I'm at a point where, and even now, I don't charge a lot of money for things for certain clients and stuff. Like some clients, I don't really charge at all because if I have a client who has a platform, who has 10 million followers and 10 million fans,
Hmm.
uh, if I just make you a song to add to my catalog, my resume,
Yeah.
I make
That's
you a
worth
hit.
more than yeah. Yeah.
That's going to open a door for
Yeah.
all the people that are in your network to say, "Hey,
Hmm.
I want a song from the guy." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
here's what I charge.
Yeah.
So if that becomes the whole thing that I learned, and I learned that in LA, like how things are really ran. And it's a bunch of friends that look out for each other. They keep a solid circle of people that they build with, and then the building is everything.
True.
You know.
So, so talk to us a little bit, Choice, about some of the projects that you're really excited about, man. If share with the audience some of the projects that you're really, really on fire about.
So I'm really, really, really on fire about launching the. I don't want to get into too much detail as to like what it is exactly because we haven't gotten it
You're
quite
still
patented.
in. Yes, got you.
But
Got
I'm really excited about opening up a new door. Like I'm
you.
leaving
Okay.
the music industry to create my own industry
Okay.
in a sense where Cub Coleman and I have said to ourselves, you know what? Why chase after all these major artists? And I don't want to be knocking on the doors of all these labels every time for a new placement and then
Mm-hmm.
waiting
Mm-hmm.
months because people don't know the
Yeah.
process of how
Yeah.
records
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes months,
Yes.
2 years for a song to get placed.
Yes.
I don't want to do that no more. My thing is, I see where the youth is headed
Mm-hmm.
and how
Mm-hmm.
they're consuming music and product. What I want to do is I want to create an industry of my own where you get it on demand and it's based on the engagement of
Mm.
those who have the influence.
Mm.
So I'm creating my own community of all the influencers that want to do music, and I'm working with all the influencers that want to do music, and I'm building a catalog, well, catalogs
That's dope.
for that platform, and I'm going to at some point, well, as soon as I get more of the catalogs done, I'm going to be taking that catalog or those catalogs to Silicon Valley because
Okay.
Silicon Valley has become so tech savvy in the digital age for social media that people are getting paid and monetized for their engagements. But no one's doing that in music right now. No one's doing that in the music industry. I don't even know why it's not even a conversation. And there's other things that, you know, that are happening with the internet that coincides with
Yes,
that.
with
So
that. Yes.
that's something that I'm really excited for. Johnny Valentine is one of my artists that I work with hands on. Dana
Wow.
Marie is another one. We're getting ready to drop those two
Wow.
projects. I'm excited because Jay Rich, who works with Migos
Yes.
and Tyga, and he's a major person in music production, but also in music marketing for urban music. He's going to be a part of that investment.
Dope.
So that's something that I'm really excited for. And I'm really excited with just the new music that, you know, I'm putting together. You know, like I just made a Afro beats record because, you know, I'm willing to. I just don't want to have any limitations. You know, whatever works works. I just want to still find my formula. So I'm excited about just putting all these new formulas together. Like, you know, I'm working in R&B. I'm working in hip hop, pop. You know, with the Empire record distribution.
Yes.
That's a hip hop drill music kind of genre. But then, you know, there's also, you know, an open market for me to, you know, keep doing my R&B music. And, you know, I'm just trying to get more film placements. I'm not chasing after, you know, making records or getting on albums with big artists no more. Like, my thing is, I just want to be a in-house production, like I've been, you know, leaving the labels and creating my own artists and developing those artists, you know, providing them what they need, you know, finding the talent and building with them, you know, because it's not a lot of money. What I had to learn about the music industry, it's not a lot of money creatively, you know. I thought that when you get a platinum, you know, the payout would be millions, you know, and it doesn't quite work like that, you know. So when people say, "Oh, I sold 100,000, you know, 100 million," how much did you really make in return? How much
From
did you
that,
really
yeah,
recoup in that
yeah.
contract, you know? And so, you know,
And it's
I've
not what
learned
you thought. It's not what you
it's
thought.
not what I thought, you
Yeah.
know. I used to be so excited to get here, and then when you get here, you realize the personalities that you're dealing with, you don't
Yeah.
really quite like,
Yeah.
you know. And I love
True.
being back in Jersey. I thought I wanted to live in LA, and I love the you know, the relationships and the friendships that I have here. I love being close to family. But you know,
That's what's up.
the music industry, you know, you I've what I can say um is people think that we have to chase the celebrities, and I learned that the celebrities don't control anything. So if you really want to make money, or if you really want to find the success, you got to find those people that are behind the scenes. So I always
Mm.
aligned myself. I didn't really care to have relationships with like Chris Brown and all these. I've realized who's doing
The
what, how things are getting
yeah.
done. So yeah, I
The
built the
production
relationships with the
behind
A
that.
and
You
R's,
yes.
the production behind it. Yeah, so that was something that I really wanted to keep doing and keep driving at. You know, and the cool thing is, you know, when people see that, they take you serious, a lot more seriously. You
When you're
know,
not when you're not
when you're not
chasing like
chasing
the
and you're trying to
stardom,
do,
the stars are trying to be, yeah, the celebrities,
yeah,
and you're more about what goes into making this whole thing happen.
yeah, you know, and I try to do that with the first artist ever that I was managing. Like when I was a manager, I was managing them at the time. They were 14 years old. And I learned a lot. Like I never wanted to be a manager, but the opportunity had presented itself. So I took it, and I got to learn a lot, and I got to see how you're treated when you're a creative versus how you're treated when you're strictly business.
Yes. Wow.
And the conversations are a lot different when you're
Different.
just a songwriter. Like I would get disrespected when I was trying to be a songwriter and trying to have business conversations and have meetings. They weren't respecting anything that I had to say at all. They weren't respecting
Wow.
anything, especially not even having the biggest resume. They weren't respecting it. So
That's
I got
deep,
to learn.
man. That's
Yeah,
deep.
it gets deep. You know, I mean, even when I was trying to, work at when I was trying to work at Universal, and I'm thinking, well, I've done this amount of work, I have this amount of knowledge, I should easily get this job. I should easily be a
Yeah.
candidate. I got rejected, and then I learned the real reasons of why I get rejected, and it's like, okay, this is a whole new thing for me. So they don't care about anything that I have to say creatively. They want to know what's the numbers, what's the outlay, what's the engagement, what's the marketing, what's the budget. They care more about the financial aspects and those assets. So
As opposed to the creative piece.
yeah. And everyone, so when I went to UArts, a lot of my friends who are not producers for like some of the biggest people now used to say to me, Choyce, you're pretty dope, but you're more business. You're much more talented business wise. You're like, you got skills, bro, but like you'd be better suited for business. And I didn't like how that came off. It was almost like you're trying to say that I'm not that good.
Yeah,
musically.
you're not talented. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but they were just saying like, no, Choyce, like you really have a better assessment of how to handle being an executive or something. So I finally just bought into it, and it really helped me because now I see how I want to move forward, and musically and business wise, and how to keep building that formula that I'm working on.
Yes.
And I've realized, I naturally am just much better at utilizing resources and putting relationships together. And so I've dived more into that
and owned it
now. Yeah, like I've owned it. Sometimes it is kind of a pain when people are only coming to me for business reasons and not music reasons.
The creative,
but I do appreciate it more. But yeah, when I was trying to be an A&R, I didn't finish school at the time, so I didn't have a degree because being an A&R is corporate. So I didn't even know that. I'm thinking, oh, you just go to a record label and you're talented. That's all you need to have. So at the time that I'm trying to be an A&R, I'm getting rejected. And so I take a step back and I say, okay, let me just take this time to actually see what's going on, see who I need to link with. So I just do my research, do my studies on people. I'm seeing who's behind what songs, behind what projects, what labels doing what. And I start getting an assessment of different personnels. And then I find two A&Rs that I think I would have a good relationship with. I see how they're, making things happen, what type of artists they're working with, the type of success that they're making with artists that they're working with. So I start, and this is at a time where I've become much more in a higher place as a songwriter. I start making my way and having artists sent to those A&Rs.
Okay.
Having talent sent to them. So they start making deals with those people, and every time that they ask them, well, how did you get our connect? How did you, who and what? And they would always say, oh, Choyce Sincere, the songwriter from Jersey. A lot of people thought that I was from Atlanta, or they think that I was from Canada, Toronto, because I work with a lot of people from Toronto. So they would always think that I was from either Atlanta or or Toronto. So they would say, "Oh, Choyce Sincere, songwriter from Atlanta," and so they would like they've heard of me because the industry is very small, but at the same time, you either know someone through someone else or you're familiar with them. So they would say, "I know that name, I've heard of it, but I just haven't gotten quite,
yes,
a direct meeting with
acquainted with, yes,
yeah, acquainted with." So they were like, "Okay, well." They would make a deal with the person, whatever that entailed. But I made them a lot. I think I made them like $20,000 in 2 months with the clients that they had. And that was just only retainers. That was even what was going into other advancements. So
yes,
2 months I made them that much money, and they didn't know who the hell I was. And at the time that I was managing the kid that I had, I decided after we finished like 3 records that we finished, I decided to hit them up, and they were like, "Yo, we gotta have a meeting." I said, "Yeah, I would definitely like to have a meeting." So they said, "Well, be here tomorrow." It was a Saturday. It was a Saturday evening. They wanted us to fly out the very next day to have a meeting.
Wow.
So I flew out the very next day. I flew out the very next day. Flight paid for and everything. And we had 3 meetings that never happens. We had 3 meetings with Capitol Records, Atlanta Records, and Warner, because those were the labels that they were working with as A&Rs. And they had the vice president. Now, the artist that I was managing, he had no music out. He had nothing out. He had nothing. But because they saw that I have a very good ear for, the clients that I'm recommending and, the records that I've worked on, it's kind of like they're just taking the word of, what I've done. So they had the vice president fly out, the vice president of Atlantic to fly out to meet the artist that I had.
Wow.
So I told them, in the midst of me presenting this artist that I had, that I'm trying to be an A&R, and so they said, "Well, dude, you made us a lot of money, and no one's made us that much money, that fast, and the way you did it, we would love to have you as a partner." So I became a partnered A&R consultant with them and working at their company with Atlantic and Warner, Capitol, and that's how I got my foot in the door. I was like, all right, there's always a loophole to this. I'm gonna figure it out.
Wow, it's a hustle.
I was doing my homework. I'm like, it's either you break an artist and you write all the records, and the labels say, "Whoa, you wrote these? Whoa,
you wrote? Yep.
We want to hire you." It's either you do it that way or you find some way to do it. But everyone has their own way of how they get in the industry.
Wow.
And
so that's how you cracked it.
Yeah, that's how I cracked it. So, and a lot of songwriters and a lot of artists, they can't get certain meetings or get certain conversations because they're only looked at as an artist or as a writer or as a producer. So me having that background, it was a lot more respected for them to want to have certain conversations.
Wow.
But there was times where egos were rising, and they would say, "Choyce, hold up, you need to humble yourself. You just a writer. You ain't nothing yet. You're just a writer. And you stay right." I'd have that and we would have some pretty heated arguments.
That's dope, man. I mean, it's just, your story, Choyce, is like, we started all the way back second grade, first grade, identifying you had a gift, you know what I'm saying? And then supporting and growing that, and people nurturing that gift, and you obviously continuing your craft and to hone your craft. But not only honing it, man, you had to overcome some stuff. You had some doubters. You had some, you had it all, fam. You
Yeah.
know, you had it all. And I think a lot of times we have that in our lives. Some of us are looking for ways of how do we overcome that. And I think your story that you shared today does share a lot of strategies of how to and believing in yourself and having a passion, forgetting about plan B. It's plan A. Like, in betting on yourself. And I was just talking to someone about that, the importance of betting on ourselves, man,
Hmm.
and making that happen. I want to, one of the things that I love to ask folks, and you talked a lot about high school. um you really shared a lot about your high school experience, but one of the things that I always like to ask guests on the show is if you could go back and give yourself your high school self advice, what would that advice be and why?
Every time I get to that question, it almost changes sometimes, and I think that's part of why the part of why it's happening is because I'm evolving my
True.
perception of it, and I think
True.
what I would say now is what I would say to myself is manage your time and apply yourself. Um, don't repress feeling like you can't do it because
Hmm.
you want to please everybody else. You know, I think mine. Hello.
Yep, we hear you now. You're back.
Sorry, that was kept calling. I think my advice would just be to really, you know, just apply yourself and you know, make as much connections as you can along the way, and understand that today might not go your way, but it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that it's far from over.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I had to deal with a lot of adversity with confidence when I was in high school. There was always external
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
you know. Just
True.
tune it out, lock
True.
in.
I love it, man. I love it, bro. You really blessed us, man. I learned a lot.
Appreciate you.
I learned a lot today, fam. And so much about overcoming, some negative experiences, growing from those experiences, believing in your dream, man. That's real talk, bro. Like you believing in that dream, and sometimes, doing the little things that your mom wasn't expecting for you to be doing, and just making it happen
Yeah,
is part of your story, and it's important, man. I'm so happy that you blessed our show, Choice. I know you got so much more to bring the world in terms of your creativity and then your business mind, that we got a chance to hear and learn about tonight, which doesn't surprise me because I always knew you're a brilliant kid, a brilliant young man, and now a brilliant adult, brilliant man. And keep it going, man. So many folks are proud of you, starting with me. I'm definitely proud of you and the things that you're doing out there in the world, man. And happy, very, very happy, for your success in the industry. Um, so
thank
keep that going. And I'm gonna be tapping in, man. I'm already thinking of a million ways to get you involved somehow with the young people that I work with,
you.
and
Yeah,
some of yeah, I'm already, bro. I'm gonna be I'm gonna
thank
be
you.
reaching out because I think you have a lot to offer, and I think that we can learn a lot from you. So thank you again, fam. I really, really, really appreciate you for spending this time. I know time is important, but spending this time with the show tonight and bringing this story, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you for having me.
No doubt. No doubt. So we are saying so long and peace. Peace out from the Purpose and Practice podcast. Another great podcast. We had the brother Choyce Schwartz, who are doing big things in the music industry. We were blessed to have him on the show. We have a special show coming up on Sunday. We'll get some information out on that tomorrow. But we got another brother who's going to be on the show on Sunday at 4:00. But I will get that flyer out to everyone. Until then, peace out and be safe, people. Peace.
It's a 9-chord banger. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Yeah, purpose and practice. Keep your mental sharp, learn all the tactics. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice.